Let's start today's video with a very important question. Do you prefer to play with an isolated queen's pawn? Or do you rather give it to your opponent? I mean, you rather create an isolated queen's pawn in your opponent's territory? Well, this is a tricky question, and actually the answer, according to Capablanca, is that you should be prepared to play against an isolated queen's pawn, and you should be prepared to play with an isolated queen's pawn. Those are completely different ideas. Playing with an isolated queen's pawn conveys playing dynamically, creating threats, creating attacks against your opponent's king. Playing against an isolated queen's pawn is simplify the position, control their attacking ideas, being one step ahead of their attacking ideas to avoid them. So both sides of the coin are really interesting, can get really subtle, but in today's video we're going to explore giving your opponent an isolated queen's pawn, and we are going to do so by playing the Queen's Gambit accepted, and we are going to analyze a game by a very strong Indian Grandmaster, Nihal Sarin, a 21-year-old that, he just crossed the 2700 rating mark. That places him in the world's 31 spots. So I mean, he's one of the strongest players in the world, and he just had a fantastic tournament in the Grand Swiss. So we're going to see his game against Gambit Gulmuraz from Poland, another young Grandmaster. So let's try to learn some ideas from this game. So let's get into it. Okay, so the game starts with d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, and of course d takes c4, the Queen's Gambit accepted. We release the tension and we give them the opportunity to occupy the center, but we are ready to strike back by playing e5, sometimes c5. So this is our idea. We give them the center. We're using our pawns to break the center and to create problems into the center, and of course to create isolated queen's pawns, as you are going to see. So knight f3 is the most normal move to avoid e5, and knight f6. This is the main line. e3, e6, bishop takes c4, the most normal way to regain the pawn, and of course the main line. And here is really important to play c5. We put pressure on d4 so they are not able to conquer the center with an early e4, something like knight c3, e4. For instance, if we play bishop e7, that is not a bad move. But here after castle, knight c3, knight bd7, e4, that would be a bad position as white already controls the center. Whereas by putting pressure on d4 right away, every time they play e4, we're going to capture c takes d4. They won't be able to occupy the center and dominate the position. So after c5, castle was played. And here Sarin decided to define the character of the game by playing c takes d4. E takes d4 is the most principal continuation. Of course, they are happy to open the diagonal for their bishop and the rook. They get this e file for the rook. But of course, capturing with a piece is possible, but less ambitious. E takes d4 is the most principal, and bishop e7. Remember the bishop should be here, as we have a better control of d5 with our queen pointing at d4, and placing the bishop on d6 may seem attractive, but then bishop g5 will be more annoying. So placing the bishop on e7 is part of the setup, the normal setup. They play knight c3, controlling d5. This is very important for them. And we castle. Everything pretty normal. He's still not deciding where to place the knight, the queenside knight, and white has a variety of options here. Gulmuraz played rook e1, that is the most normal. Also knight e5 might be a normal move. That is usually answered by knight c6, changing the opponent's structure after knight takes c6. And by placing this pawn here, we gain better control of d5, and so they won't be able to play d5 any longer. And playing d5 leads nowhere, as after trading everything, he takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight c6. Our pieces are, yeah, free. We're playing bishop f5, bishop f6, and yeah, we're gonna get some pressure against white's position. So this might be equal. Okay, so the most normal move is to place the rook in the semi-open file with rook e1. Now a6. Yeah, this is a very tricky idea. Nihal is waiting. He is still not sure if the knight would be better placed on c6 or on d7. So he is trying to improve the bishop by playing b5 and bishop b7. So the game continues with bishop f4. Yeah, also bishop g5 is pretty normal. I guess this is a very normal continuation. Knight e5 was played a couple of rounds later by Matthias Bluebaum against Sarin in the Grand Swiss. And after knight c6, knight takes e6, b takes e6, bishop f4, a5. It ended in a draw after bishop f4, knight f6, bishop f5, knight d7. And the game ended in a draw, but the position is, well, close to equal, I guess. This game we're seeing was played before, so this means Sarin is pretty confident about his preparation. So he repeated the line, and against a very good theoretician as Matthias Bluebaum. So against bishop f4 he played b5, typical. That was the idea of playing a6, bishop b3, bishop b7, and rook c1. And we reached a critical position. And well, what would you play here? It's a tough one. It's a tough position. All the normal looking moves run into some kind of trouble, so be aware. And yeah, he decided to play bishop b4 as a way to increase the control of d5. Instead of it, yeah, I think this is the best move by far. Instead of it, playing knight b d7 looks absolutely normal, as d5 seems to be control and knight b6 is coming. But then d5 is really strong, e takes d5, and here white to play and get an advantage by playing bishop c7. Yeah, bishop c7 is pretty strong, as if black captures, knight takes d5, attacking the queen with the knight and the rook, and followed by knight takes e7, and white's initiative becomes really threatening. So rather than playing this way, knight c6 may seem like a normal move, but again d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5 looks really strong. The idea is that trading here is not possible because of bishop takes d5, and c6 is attacked, e7 is attacked, white wins a piece. This explains why bishop b4 is the most important move of the opening, and I guess it was a preparation, as it's a very accurate move. Now the game continued with bishop g5. Yeah, once the bishop went away, but now the knight comes to defend the knight and to enable rook c8. The good thing is that this knight is pinned. I mean, so after playing d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5 is not possible because of the rook, so will be an exchange up. And yeah, that's the reason why white preferred to play a3. a3, now bishop takes c3, rook takes c3. Usually b takes c3 is normal, as it defends the pawn, but here a3 is already really weak after h6, bishop h4, and queen a5, attacking a3 and putting pressure on c3 as well. Yeah, knight e4 might be a move. Rook takes c3 seems the most natural, but now rook c8, trying to simplify the position, and Gulmuraz played rook ce3. If you are playing the IQP, you should avoid trades. And yeah, so rook ce3 seems like a really, well, promising idea, as once the knight is moved, the rook is going to be able to get to h3 or g3. So this one looks really interesting. Now queen c7, a very normal move to unpin. Now the knight is ready to jump to d5 or g4. and knight e5 was the move. So yeah, everything looks dangerous now. Knight f7 might be an idea to capture here. And as I told you before, rook h3 or rook g3. So we are reaching a very interesting moment where black seems to be under pressure. Fortunately for Nihal, he could capture. Knight takes e5, d takes e5. Still doesn't look great, as once the knight moves, for instance, knight d5, rook h3 or rook g3, and it looks dangerous for our king. But he came up with a very nice intermezzo, and I'm talking about queen c6, a fantastic move. Yeah, this one forces white's pieces to be tied to the defense. Yeah, of course he's trying to force f3, and this one stops the queen from coming to h5. It stops the rook from coming to h3 or d3. So this one would have been really nice. Besides, he could have knight g4 attacking the rook, and of course f takes g4, queen takes g2 would be a checkmate, and of course moving the rook, well, queen c5 would be really annoying. So yeah, this is a great move, queen c6, and forces white to play the sad rook f3, knight e4, attacking the bishop, and the game reaches a critical position, but this time is white the one that should be really careful. And he played bishop h4 rather than the better bishop f4. I mean, bishop f4 looks more passive and allows rook d8, but after queen e2, d2 is controlled. While after bishop h4, the idea seems pretty logical, as rook fd8 is not possible, and g5 is not possible because of bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, and rook g3, regaining the piece if black plays h6, h4. But the thing here is that Sarin has got a very nice small move. Yeah, this is the kind of move that we often underestimate. You say, okay, if they play g5, I simply capture. Yeah, but what if they prepare g5 by playing h6? So now g5 is becoming a reality, and it's really hard to deal with it. The beautiful thing here is that this knight is super strong. The Polish player tried to get rid of the knight by playing rook f4, but this one turned out to be the decisive mistake. And here, black to play and win. So I invite you to stop the video and try to find the solution. It's a really nice one. It combines some tactical ideas that I'm sure you're gonna be able to come up with. So the move is knight c3. It's not the only one that wins, but this is the cleanest. Queen f3 or queen g4 are forced. Queen f3 was played. Queen g4 is really similar. So after queen f3, here the second tactical idea comes into play, and I'm talking about knight e2. It takes advantage of the weakness in the back rank. So I mean, rook takes e2 meets queen c1, bishop d1, queen takes e1, rook e1, queen takes e1, checkmate, and of course queen takes e2 meets queen takes d2, checkmate. So king f1 is forced, and after knight takes f4, queen takes f4, queen takes g2, king takes g2, and let's stop. Let's count the material. We are an exchange up, an exchange and a pawn up, so we can confidently trade queens. Queen e4, queen takes e4, bishop takes e4, and win the game. After 92, Simon Gulmuraz resigned, giving Sarin a very nice victory. So it was a very nice handling of the IQP. Some very interesting subtleties were learned. For instance, yeah, the flexibility with the knight. He ended up placing the knight on d7, but he didn't decide for a long while. He preferred to play a6, b5, and yeah, the stunning one is after bishop f4, b5, bishop b3, bishop b7, rook c1, bishop b4. This is a very subtle point that is easy to miss. I hope you enjoyed the ideas. I enjoyed the game. Was really a brilliant game from Sarin. And well, see you next time. Thank you.